The busy season of Thanksgiving preparations had arrived. The Boston sky was already beginning to take on the colors of dusk, and a cold wind blew through the old streets. Eleanor Bradford gazed out the window and let out a deep sigh. "Mom, I don't understand this problem," came the voice of her 13-year-old daughter Lily, who was doing homework at the living room table. Her voice brought Eleanor's thoughts back to reality. She pushed aside the pile of documents she had brought home from the accounting firm and sat down next to her daughter. "Which one?" "Math?" Eleanor asked gently. "Yes, this equation." The teacher explained it, but it's a bit complicated. Eleanor squinted her tired eyes, focusing on her daughter's notebook. As a single mother raising her daughter alone, her days were like walking a tightrope between work, household chores, and parenting. 5 years had passed since the divorce, but since her ex-husband Charles moved to California, Lily's opportunities to see her father had become once a year at most. "You can solve this by subtracting from both sides," she said. While helping with her daughter's homework, Eleanor was also organizing the materials for tomorrow's meeting in the back of her mind. Her reputation at the accounting firm was high, and opportunities for promotion were increasing, but that also meant an increase in responsibilities and workload. Just as she was about to start preparing dinner, the phone rang. Seeing the name displayed, Eleanor hesitated for a moment. "Hello, Mother." "Eleanor, I finally got through. I was just making final confirmations for tomorrow's charity event," came the composed voice of Carol Bradford from the other end. "I'm calling about Thanksgiving. You are coming this year, aren't you?" Eleanor looked out the window as she answered. "I haven't decided yet. Work has been busy." "That excuse again?" There was a hint of irritation in Carol's voice. "Have you ever thought about how disappointed Grandma Martha will be because of you? Especially this year when her health isn't good." Eleanor bit her lip in silence. Her mother Carol was known in the local community as a philanthropist and was obsessed with maintaining a perfect family. For her, Eleanor's existence as a single mother was something that marred her ideal family image. "Victoria is coming back from Hawaii next week. The children seem excited about it too." Eleanor's sister Victoria had married a successful lawyer and lived in a luxurious home with 2 adorable children. In Carol's eyes, Victoria was the ideal daughter. "I'll think about it," Eleanor answered in a tired voice. When she hung up, Lily peeked out from the living room. "Grandma?" "Yes, about Thanksgiving. Are we going to that house again?" There was anxiety in Lily's voice. Memories of cold glances and sarcastic remarks from past family events came flooding back to Eleanor. To protect her daughter, she had minimized participation in events hosted by Carol in recent years. "I don't know yet. But," Eleanor continued, choosing her words carefully, "Grandma Martha isn't feeling well. This might be her last Thanksgiving." Lily nodded silently. Martha was the only ally Eleanor and Lily had in the family. She had always maintained sharp insight and a warm heart. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, Eleanor opened an old album. There was a photo of a young Martha. A woman who viewed the world with strict but fair eyes and influenced many students. Martha was the person Eleanor had looked to as a guide in life. The next morning, Eleanor called Martha. "Grandma Martha, about Thanksgiving." "I'll come." "With Lily." She could feel Martha's voice brighten on the other end of the phone. "Oh, how wonderful. I'm looking forward to seeing you and Lily." After a slight pause, Martha quietly added, "Eleanor, sometimes family is more complicated than we think. But what's important is to have truth and courage. Don't forget that." As Eleanor pondered the meaning of those words, she was a little surprised at her own courage in deciding to attend Thanksgiving. She didn't explain the adult circumstances in detail to Lily, but her daughter had begun to sense that the relationship with her mother and sister was more than just ordinary family squabbles. "Mom, are we going?" "Really?" When Lily asked at breakfast, Eleanor smiled and nodded. "We are. But promise me, no matter what happens, we're in this together. We're family." Lily, though looking anxious, squeezed her mother's hand back. A few days before Thanksgiving, Eleanor was walking down the supermarket aisle checking her shopping list. Don't forget whipping cream for the pumpkin pie, Lily said as if suddenly remembering. Grandma Martha said homemade is nicer. Eleanor smiled. That's right. Grandma Martha has always valued homemade pies since I was a child. As they headed to the baking section, Eleanor noticed a familiar silhouette. Victoria was standing there, wrapped in a luxury brand coat, holding a shopping basket. Their eyes met, and there was no escape. Well, Eleanor. Lily. Victoria's voice rang bright, but her eyes were cold as they assessed her sister and niece. Thanksgiving shopping? Yes, Eleanor answered briefly. I thought I'd make a pumpkin pie. Victoria laughed lightly. I've already ordered from the gourmet department. I don't have time. As she straightened her cashmere sweater, she continued, Your sweater looks quite worn out. You should spend money on yourself once in a while. Eleanor took a deep breath to stay calm. I invest in what's necessary. Like Lily's education. Yes, that's good. Victoria's gaze moved to Lily's slightly oversized uniform. Children grow so fast. But you should dress her in clothes that fit properly. Eleanor didn't miss Lily's face turning red. We were just about to replace it. Eleanor placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder, standing protectively. It'll be ready for Thanksgiving. You are coming in formal attire to Grandma's house, right? There was a small sting in Victoria's words. Mom is particular about the table setting this year. I've already bought new clothes for my children. After an awkward silence, Victoria looked at her watch and continued, Oh, I must go. I have a spa appointment. See you at Thanksgiving. After she left, Eleanor looked at Lily's expression. Don't mind her, Lily. Aunt Victoria always looks down on us, doesn't she? Lily said quietly as she pushed the cart. Why? Eleanor struggled to find an answer. How could she explain this complex family dynamic to her daughter? The adult world is sometimes complicated, she said. But what matters is that we care for each other. Eleanor's accounting firm was overflowing with year-end busyness. Piles of documents were stacked on her desk, and multiple spreadsheets were open on her computer screen. Bradford, she turned at the sharp voice to find her boss, Martin Green, standing there. What's the status on the year-end financial documents for the Johnson Group? I'll have them done by tomorrow morning, Eleanor answered while rubbing her tired eyes. Tomorrow? Martin frowned. I want them today. I'm sorry, but I mentioned that I wanted to leave early since it's the day before Thanksgiving, Eleanor replied calmly but firmly. I have preparations with my daughter. Martin sighed with displeasure. Eleanor, in this industry, work sometimes takes priority over family events. If you want a promotion, you should understand that. I do understand, Eleanor stood up. But this is leave that I applied for in advance. I'll submit the materials tomorrow morning. Martin was about to say something but, perhaps sensing Eleanor's determination, eventually just shook his head lightly and left. On the way home, Eleanor turned off her work phone in the car and gripped the steering wheel tightly. Balancing the competitive promotion race with her colleagues while fulfilling her responsibilities as a single mother was like walking a tightrope every day. When she arrived home, she saw Lily writing something at the kitchen table. Homework? Eleanor asked as she took off her coat. Yes, an essay. The theme is in my family. Lily was fidgeting with her pencil in frustration. But I don't know how to write it. Eleanor sat down next to her daughter. What's difficult? Everyone else writes about their mom and dad and siblings. Lily's words trailed off. But we're different, aren't we? I hardly ever see Dad. Eleanor felt a pang in her heart. There are many forms of family, Lily. The two of us are a proper family too. And we have Grandma Martha, don't we? But Jennifer in my class says we're not a real family. Eleanor took her daughter's hand. What do you think a real family is? People who live together? Or people who truly care for each other? After thinking for a bit, Lily answered, people who care for each other. I think. That's right. So we are a real family, Eleanor said gently. Why don't you try writing that in your own words? Lily nodded slowly and picked up her pencil again. On the eve of Thanksgiving, the phone rang. When Eleanor answered, she heard Martha's calm voice. "Eleanor, I'm calling about tomorrow. Is there anything you'd like me to bring?" "I've made the pumpkin pie." "Nothing needed," Martha coughed slightly. "Having you and Lily come is all I want. I'm particularly looking forward to it." Eleanor smiled. "We're looking forward to it too, Grandma." "Eleanor," Martha's voice suddenly became serious. "Sometimes family is more complicated than we think. Tomorrow will surely be a special day." "What do you mean?" Eleanor frowned. "The time will come when you'll understand everything," Martha answered quietly. "You have strength. Remember that." After the call ended, Eleanor sat down on the living room sofa, pondering the meaning of Martha's mysterious words. She was truly worried about her grandmother's health, but more than that, her heart was filled with anxiety about what might happen at tomorrow's family gathering. The next morning, Eleanor woke up in the still dim room and stared at the ceiling. She took a deep breath, as if gathering courage to get through the day. "Mom." The door opened, and Lily stood there in her pajamas. "Are you already awake?" "Yes, we need to get ready." Eleanor smiled and invited her daughter to sit beside her on the bed. "I'm scared of Grandma's house," Lily said in a small voice. "Why?" "Grandma Carol and the cousins always look at us strangely." Lily hugged her knees. "Like I've done something wrong." Eleanor hugged her daughter. "You've done nothing wrong. We're going today for Grandma Martha's sake. She's been on my side since I was a child. She truly loves you too." Lily nodded. "Grandma Martha is different, isn't she? She always really listens to me." "That's right." Eleanor stood up. "Come on, let's get ready. I'll help you wear your new dress today." The two began preparations slowly. Eleanor carefully braided Lily's hair and took time with her own makeup for the first time in a while. The homemade pumpkin pie placed in the corner of the room glowed warmly in the morning light. "Ready?" Eleanor placed her hand on Lily's shoulder. "Yes," Lily nodded, looking a bit nervous. Eleanor picked up the pie and took Lily's hand. The two left the apartment and headed for Carol's mansion. In the car, Eleanor was steeling herself for the day ahead. No matter what happened, she would protect her daughter. Carol Bradford's mansion was perfectly decorated for Thanksgiving. Fresh flowers were arranged in the entrance hall, and trophies she had received for her charitable activities were proudly displayed on the mantelpiece in the living room. Eleanor held her daughter's hand and pressed the doorbell. "Smile, Lily," Eleanor said in a low voice. "No matter what happens, I'll be right beside you." The door opened, and Carol appeared. She was wearing an elegant navy dress, and her hair was perfectly styled. "Eleanor, Lily," she put on a formal smile. "You've finally arrived. Everyone else is already here." Eleanor offered the pumpkin pie. "It's homemade." "Well," Carol took the pie, frowning slightly. "We have plenty of desserts, but thank you." Entering the living room, relatives were chatting in small groups. Victoria was standing near the fireplace with her husband and two children. She waved lightly at Eleanor, making her new diamond necklace sparkle. "Eleanor?" "Lily." Hearing Martha's voice, Eleanor turned. Martha was sitting in an armchair, holding a cane. Her face was a bit thinner, but her eyes were still sharp and full of intelligence. "Grandma," Eleanor approached and kissed Martha's cheek. Lily followed suit. "I'm so glad you both came." Martha held both their hands. "I've had them prepare special seats, next to me." "Dinner is ready." Carol poked her head out from the dining room. "Please, everyone." The luxurious dining table was adorned with crystal glasses, silver cutlery, and white porcelain plates. The centerpiece turkey was brilliantly positioned at the center of the table. Martha used her cane to slowly take her seat, saying, "Eleanor, Lily, over here," inviting them to the seats next to her. Once everyone was seated and Carol had finished giving thanks, the distribution of food began. Eleanor looked around the table and realized something was wrong. Everyone's place had silver forks and knives, but she and Lily had nothing. Excuse me, Eleanor said quietly. It seems we don't have forks and knives. A moment of silence enveloped the table. Carol opened her eyes in surprise. Oh my, what happened? I must have forgotten, she shrugged. Just a little oversight. You can eat with your hands, can't you? The sound of several relatives gasping could be heard. Victoria laughed softly. Lily would suit that, like a dog. Lily's cheeks turned bright red, and tears welled up in her eyes. She reached out with trembling hands and stared at the food on her plate. The guests around averted their eyes awkwardly, and only the sound of small throat clearings could be heard. Eleanor felt her body shake with anger, but then she noticed Martha giving her a slight nod. The old lady's eyes contained a special message. Martha nodded slightly, signaling to look under the table. Eleanor slowly peered under the tablecloth. There was a small bag placed there. Careful not to be noticed by others, Eleanor quietly pulled the bag onto her lap. Inside were two items. One was a small recorder with a note attached saying "play." The other was a thick envelope. Eleanor looked at Martha. The old lady nodded quietly, mouthing, "Later." Lily, Eleanor said to her daughter in a calm voice. It's all right. She turned on the switch while hiding the recorder under the table. Carol and Victoria's conversation, along with the laughter around them, began to be quietly recorded. Is there a problem? Carol asked with a cold smile. The food is getting cold. Eleanor took a deep breath and held her daughter's hand. No problem at all. She boldly took a piece of turkey with her hands and signaled with her eyes for Lily to do the same. Lily hesitated but mimicked her mother. Mom, Lily said in a small voice. It's okay, Lily, Eleanor answered quietly. This will be settled someday, I promise. Across the table, Carol and Victoria occasionally exchanged glances and laughed quietly. Other relatives couldn't hide their uncomfortable expressions, and the conversation became superficial and tense. Eleanor, Uncle John, who was sitting nearby, whispered. Use my fork. I'll get another one. It's fine, Uncle John, Eleanor smiled. We're okay. Martha quietly placed her hand on Eleanor's knee. You're strong, Eleanor. As the meal progressed, Eleanor wondered about the contents of the envelope. But she intuitively understood that now was not the time. She continued eating quietly, encouraging Lily, feeling the recorder under the table continuing to record all the conversations. When dessert time came, Carol began cutting cake ordered from a high-end patisserie, not the pumpkin pie Eleanor had brought. Sorry, Eleanor. I'll save your pie for tomorrow's lunch, she said apologetically. Eleanor just nodded. Tonight's humiliation was all being recorded. Someday, the truth would come to light. Towards the end of the meal, Martha stood up, looking tired. I need to rest for a bit. I'll help you, Grandma. Eleanor stood up immediately to support Martha. Lily followed. When they reached the guest room, Martha invited them in and closed the door. You both endured well, Martha suddenly spoke in a strong voice. I'm truly proud of you. Grandma, that recorder and envelope? Eleanor asked. Martha smiled slightly. You'll understand when the time comes. Now is not yet that time. Everything that happened today has a reason. But why? Lily asked in a small voice. Why were we the only ones without forks? Martha placed her hand on Lily's cheek. Sometimes, people can't hide their true nature. Today, Carol and Victoria showed everyone what kind of people they really are. Eleanor took out the envelope and was about to open it. However, Martha quietly placed her hand on it. Not yet. Come to my house in a week. Everything will be revealed there. Eleanor nodded. She could feel that something was about to begin. She checked the recorder hidden under her clothes and looked at Martha. I promise, Grandma. Martha nodded with satisfaction. Now, let's wash our faces and go back downstairs. We need to say to everyone, she winked. And give Carol and Victoria a special smile. What they fear most is that you are strong. The three laughed lightly and prepared to leave the room. A week later, morning light streamed through the window of Eleanor's apartment. She gazed at the clock with a tense expression. Today was the day Martha had specified. "Mom, why did Grandma Martha invite everyone to our house?" Lily poked her head out from the kitchen to ask. "She was preparing special cookies." "Grandma seems to have something important to say," Eleanor answered in a calm voice. Over the past week, she had listened repeatedly to the recordings from Thanksgiving night. Carol and Victoria's cruel words, and the conversation the two had in the kitchen after the meal, were even more shocking. "Did you see?" Their faces turned bright red, Victoria's mocking voice. "Eleanor always thinks she's special." Studying art in college, Carol's cold voice. "Without us, where would she and that child be? Abandoned by Charles, living a miserable life." Each time she listened to the recording, Eleanor's determination grew stronger. The doorbell rang, and Martha arrived. She had a more solemn expression than usual, but there was a powerful light in her eyes. "Are you ready?" Martha took Eleanor's hand. "Yes," Eleanor nodded. "But, Grandma, is this really okay?" "Truth can sometimes be painful," Martha said quietly. "But without it, healing cannot begin." Relatives began to arrive one after another. Carol and Victoria appeared last. They both looked clearly displeased. Calling everyone together in such a small apartment, Carol said in a low voice as she took off her coat. "You should have booked a hotel conference room." Eleanor said nothing and guided everyone to the living room. About 15 relatives were packed onto additional chairs and sofas. Carol and Victoria deliberately sat in distant seats. "Thank you all for gathering here," Martha stood up and lightly tapped the floor with her cane. "I have something I must say." The room fell silent. "I have lived a long life. I've seen many changes. But some things remain unchanged. That is the bond of family." Martha looked at each person's face. "However, sometimes even within a family, ugly truths can be hidden." Carol shifted uncomfortably. "Martha, aren't you tired?" "No, Carol. There's no day when my mind is clearer than today." Martha looked at Eleanor. "Eleanor, please." Eleanor slowly stood up and placed a small recorder on the coffee table. "This was recorded on Thanksgiving night," she said quietly. She pressed the button, and Carol's voice echoed throughout the room. "Just a little oversight. You can eat with your hands, can't you?" Then Victoria's voice. "Lily would suit that, like a dog." The air in the room froze. The recording continued, moving to the conversation between the two in the kitchen after the meal. All the contemptuous words about Lily and Eleanor, even plans to exclude them from the family, were clearly recorded. When the recording ended, a long silence dominated the room. Carol's face had turned pale, and Victoria was biting her lip. "This is..." Carol began in a trembling voice. "This is taken out of context. We were just joking." "Joking?" Martha's voice resonated harshly. "Calling a 13-year-old child a dog is a joke? Not giving cutlery to your own daughter and granddaughter is a joke? Carol, you should be ashamed." "Martha, you're getting old and your judgment is deteriorating." Carol suddenly became aggressive. "What's the meaning of such an old recording? Eleanor always acts like a victim." Silence. Martha's angry voice echoed throughout the room. The old lady slammed her cane hard on the floor. "My judgment is perfect. And today, the time has come to reveal another truth." Martha took documents from her bag. "This is my new will." "Eleanor, open the envelope." Eleanor opened the envelope she had received from Martha on Thanksgiving night. Inside was a copy of the will. She read it and gasped. "Grandma Martha." "Read it, Eleanor," Martha said gently. Eleanor held the document with trembling hands and began to read aloud. "I, Martha Josephine Bradford, being of sound mind, hereby record my will as follows. The majority of my assets, specifically 70% of my real estate, investments, and cash assets, will be inherited by my granddaughter Eleanor Bradford and my great-granddaughter Lily Bradford. The remaining 30% will be distributed equally among family members other than Carol Bradford and Victoria Stanfield. The sound of gasping could be heard in the room. Carol stood up and shouted, "This is unfair. You're not in your right mind." "I am very much in my right mind," Martha answered calmly. "This will was created 2 months ago, and my lawyer and doctor have certified that my mental state is sound." Victoria looked at Robert. As a lawyer, he examined the will and slowly nodded. "It's legally valid," he said quietly. "You too." Victoria looked at her husband and shouted, "You should stand with family." "This is family," Robert answered quietly but firmly. "Standing on the side of truth and justice." Martha tapped the table to gather everyone's attention. "I want to ask here. What is a true family? Is blood connection enough?" The old lady stood up and walked towards Lily. "She was called a dog by you. Eleanor has been called a miserable mother behind her back. Is this family?" Martha turned to face Carol. "I raised you as my daughter. But your heart has grown cold. You've come to care only about social status and appearances." "But, Mom." Carol began to cry. "I just wanted to protect the family's honor." "Honor?" Martha's voice was filled with pain. "Honor is what's in the heart. Kindness, compassion, honesty, that's true honor." Martha stood between Eleanor and Lily, placing her hands on their shoulders. These two have lived honestly despite difficulties. Eleanor has raised a child alone, done respectable work, and taught Lily love and dignity. This is the image of family that I am proud of. Uncle John stood up. "Martha is right. I am ashamed that I remained silent on Thanksgiving night. Eleanor, Lily, please forgive me." One by one, relatives began to express apologies and words of support to Eleanor and Lily. Carol and Victoria were isolated, trembling with anger and humiliation. "This isn't over," Carol said in an angry voice. "You'll all regret this." She and Victoria gathered their belongings and headed for the door. "You are not banished from the family," Martha said to their backs. "You just need to learn to change. Someday, when the time comes that you can change from your heart, come back." After the door closed, a strange stillness spread through the room. Eleanor hugged Lily and felt tears welling up in her eyes. "What's wrong, Lily? We've found a real family, haven't we?" Lily smiled slightly. Martha looked at the two and nodded. "That's right, Lily. From today, a family in the true sense begins." Eleanor felt as if she had been released from years of burden. She finally felt like she was putting an end to the suffering she had endured and sensing a new beginning. Spring light streamed through the window, brightening the living room of Eleanor's apartment. 3 months had passed since the confrontation at Thanksgiving, and many things had changed. "Eleanor, what do you think of this color scheme?" Martha sat on the sofa, spreading out color samples. She had moved in with Eleanor and Lily and was spending peaceful days. "I think bright colors would suit the new office." "Lovely," Eleanor smiled. "I especially like this bluish green." After the Thanksgiving incident, Eleanor made a big decision. She decided to realize her long-cherished dream of opening her own accounting firm. With Martha's support and encouragement, she rented a small office space downtown and launched Bradford Financial Services. "Mom, look. I passed." Lily shouted as soon as she returned from school, waving her test paper. "Perfect score in math." "That's wonderful, Lily." Eleanor hugged her daughter. Lily's change was also remarkable. Since the Thanksgiving incident, she had been freed from bullying at school and regained her confidence. In her essay In My Family, her definition that family is people who cherish each other was highly praised by her teacher. "By the way, this arrived for you," Martha handed over an envelope. Eleanor opened it and read the contents. "A letter from Carol." "What does it say?" Martha asked. "Words of apology and an offer of reconciliation." Eleanor slowly folded the letter. "But I think I still need time." Having lost her status in the community, Carol had been forced to resign from her position as a director of charitable organizations. Eleanor had heard that Victoria's relationship with her husband Robert had deteriorated, and they were living separately. The two had tried legal means to overturn the will but were defeated by the evidence Martha had recorded. "There's no need to rush," Martha said quietly. "True change takes time. We can wait and see if they have really changed." The phone rang, and Lily answered. "Great Uncle John." Yes, of course." Since Thanksgiving, many relatives had deepened their bonds with Eleanor and Lily. Uncle John, in particular, visited the two regularly and taught Lily how to play the guitar. "He wants to talk about Christmas party plans," Lily said as she put down the phone. "Christmas is still 8 months away." Eleanor laughed. "He's eager to rebuild the family," Martha winked. That night, the three sat around the dinner table. Eleanor suddenly remembered Thanksgiving night. At that time, only she and Lily's seats had no forks. That humiliating moment had now become a symbol of a new beginning. "Do you remember how you felt when you found what was under the table that day?" Martha quietly asked. She seemed to have read Eleanor's thoughts. "Yes," Eleanor smiled. "More than embarrassment or anger, I felt strength. The power to believe in myself." "Blood ties alone don't make a family," Martha said gently. "Relationships that we choose and nurture ourselves are the true family." Eleanor looked around the table. Martha, Lily, and herself. Small, but warm, a family that respects each other. For the first time, she felt the warmth of a family in the true sense.